Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village Board meeting of August 9th. Please join us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mrs. Thomas.
Trustee Purcell. Trustee Baloo. Trustee Washington. Here. Trustee Harris Jones. Here. Trustee Hyperman. Here. Trustee Roman. Here. President Hofeld.
Here, representing staff this evening, to my left, our village manager, Napoleon Haney, to my right, our village attorney, Chris Cummings. The minutes of July 26. Any additions or corrections? Trustee Washington, Trustee Harris Jones, Trustee Hyperman, Trustee Roman. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
Been moved by Trustee Washington, seconded by Trustee Hyperman. Roll call, please.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Abstain.
President Hofeld.
Aye. The minutes are approved. The claims list in the amount of $662,126.18. Again, Trustee Washington,
Nothing.
Trustee Harris Jones,
Nothing for me.
Trustee Hyperman,
I have nothing.
Trustee Roman.
No issue.
May I have a motion to approve the claims list, please? By Trustee Roman, seconded by Trustee Harris Jones. Roll call, please.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
President Hofeld.
Aye. Of that $662,000 claims list, two items comprised half of that claims list. Our employees' health insurance for 1 month was $240,000, and our payment to Thorn Creek Sanitary District was $94,000. That amounted to $334,000, or exactly half of that claims list. Hear from the audience. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board on any subject not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am. Come to the podium, please.
I am Zatania Tate, a resident of Homewood for almost 23 years on August the 26th. I am disabled and I am a victim of mortgage and financial institution fraud that involves my real estate being stolen from me. This real estate theft has resulted in an order of the court to evict me and my family from my home, that we have 3 warranty deeds that have been recorded that proves my ownership of my property. LC&C Properties and Management Group, LC&C, claim to have purchased my property online at auction.com and wire transferred $160,500 for that unlawful sale. That company, LC&C, has stolen my identity and assumed a mortgage that names me as the borrower, and my social security number is associated with that fraudulent mortgage loan. In spite of these facts, the Homewood Police Department refuses to take a police report so that I can get justice due to this criminal theft of my property and the criminal theft of my identity. Thank you. This comment that I've written, I did give it to the Village of Homewood today around 3:15 p.m. So you do have a record of it.
Yes, ma'am. We all
Thank
have a
you.
copy of it.
Thank you so
And if I
much.
may have our village manager try to address some of your concerns.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Yes, ma'am. We're absolutely totally sympathetic to the information that you shared. The unfortunate part is I spoke with our our police chief, as I'm sure you have, or someone in the police department.
No.
Our police department does not have jurisdiction over this type of crime because it is a civil matter. So as we spoke on the phone last week, I'm Napoleon, we spoke last week on the
Yes, sir.
phone. We would recommend strongly that you retain an attorney.
I have intentions and I have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday for an attorney regarding this matter. I do appreciate the board assuming that this is a civil matter, but the fact is that my identity has been stolen and I have not been given an opportunity to prove that. You haven't given me a chance to show you exactly how my identity is being stolen to this day. This mortgage loan is still effective in my name. They just made a payment of $15,000. It is an ongoing mortgage that was supposedly foreclosed on. So no, it is not a civil matter when someone has stolen my identity, is what I'm saying. In the event of wire transferring money. So it is my commitment to the village to let you know that there was a wire transfer of this for this property sale online at auction.com, like I said, which is unlawful. You cannot purchase property. I am not an attorney, but I do know for a fact that property cannot be purchased online at auction.com or any other, where wire money is wire transferred. That is a federal crime.
Ms. Tate,
Yes,
the
sir.
first step for you to do is to consult your attorney.
Yes, sir.
If your attorney feels that a police report should be filed, he can intercede on your behalf with our police department.
I
So
understand.
I strongly recommend you do that.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, board. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Hi, I'm Shelley Marks, and this is Dr. Scott McAllister,
Good
who is Superintendent of Homewood School District 153, and Mike Dickover, who is Chairman of the Citizens for Homewood Schools Committee, and I am President of the School Board for Homewood 153. And it feels like it was just a minute ago that I was here telling you something very similar to what I'm going to be telling you tonight, but actually it was about 6 years ago. We are preparing to go for referendum in November. And while there is never a good time to go for a referendum, this is an especially scary time to be doing it. But there is especially never a good time to tell children that they can't have the education that they deserve and that our community has come to expect from our schools. And without this referendum success, that's exactly what we will be doing. We will be diminishing the quality of our school district. So I want to give you a little bit of a history and tell you what we're asking for and try to help you understand where we're at and how we got here. We have had a structural deficit in our school district for years. We have solved this with a referendum twice, but both were to sell bonds. So as you know, you sell a bond, the community pays for the bond, and we spend down the bond to fill our structural deficit. Both times we've done this, the community has overwhelmingly supported our effort. And the last two referendums were in 2011 and 2016. They were planned to last 5 to 7 years, and they have lasted 5 to 7 years. Our district, as you know, is funded primarily by property taxes and some from Springfield. So to meet the structural deficit, we need to ask our community for the money. And in order to keep our schools the same strength that they are, this is what we have to do. Come to our community and say, you want to keep the schools good? And the community says yes. But the last 2 times, our only option was to sell bonds. This time, we have a new option. And the last 2 times, the community said over and over, can you please find a permanent solution? And we finally have found a permanent solution, and that is to raise our limiting rate. This was not an option the last 2 times we went to referendum, but it is now. So Dr. McAllister is going to explain a little bit more about this.
Good evening, everyone. It's just a few months ago that I visited to, in this boardroom anyway, for approval for our addition at Churchill School. And that is underway now. So I appreciate the planning committee listening to that presentation. Just a little bit about school funding, which I know you're familiar with revenue sources. But in 2017, the state of Illinois changed the way they fund schools. And they came up with something called an evidence-based funding model. And part of that model involves determining what is called an adequacy target. Fancy way of saying how adequate does local property tax support what is an ideal education. And they came up with a criteria, a list of 34 different things that in the state's eyes constitute an ideal education. Things like low class sizes, interventionists, fine arts programs, social workers, school psychologists, all these things put together. In using this, they break every district in the state of Illinois into quartiles. You're either incredibly well funded all the way down to the lowest quartile, which is the most poorly funded. And unfortunately, our district falls in that lowest quartile. So we receive 65 cents on the dollar of the money we need to provide that ideal education. Our adequacy target is 65%. So the way, and then the state kicks in some through their local funding, but as Ms. Parks described, we're still short, and that's why we need the referendum. So, you know, it ultimately comes down to one of 2 things. You either bring in additional revenue, which is what we're seeking through the referendum, or you reduce spending. And we feel that the supports we provide, you know, to our students and our families are so critical that, you know, reducing spending is not something we want to do unless we are forced to do it. So that's really why we want to go to the committee or the community and seek the referendum that we're seeking, so that we can continue to provide the level of support that we do, and also address some other needs, which I'll finish with this evening.
So we are going to be asking the community to increase the limiting rate by 120 cents. And that will bring us in line with HF and 161. Now, a large portion of Homewood already resides in 161 and is paying a higher limiting rate for their elementary district. So this will bring the rest of Homewood in line with what 233 and 161 have as their limiting rate.
So when we considered, you may ask, where did the 120 cent, why did we come up with that number specifically? So there's 3 things we wish to accomplish with our referendum. The first is what we've already talked about, eliminating the structural deficit that we have without reducing the services that we provide. The second is to build up our cash reserves. The state recommends that we have 6 to 9 months of cash in a savings account in case we need it. And right now we're at about 3.5 months, which is obviously lower than what we want, especially problematic when, as you're aware, Cook County is going to delay our tax receipts this year by 5 months. So right now we're looking at a fall where we're going to have to come up with, we're still finalizing these numbers, but it's possible we'll have to come up with another source of revenue just to meet our obligations in the next few months. And then the third thing is our 3 buildings were built in the 50s and the 60s. Churchill School was built in 1964 and an addition put on in 67, but there's been no major work at Churchill School since 1967. There's been no new work done at Willow School since 1995, major work. And James Hart, there's been nothing new since 2002. So it's been 20 years since we have done any major work on any of our campuses. And quite simply, they're getting older and they need some attention. Education in 2022 is very different than it was when most of us were in school. interventions were not something that existed 30 years ago. So while our enrollment has been pretty steady, and we still envision it being steady in the future, the way we use schools is very different. And just at Churchill as an example, we have to schedule 6 lunch periods just to get our kids through because our cafeteria is so small. So those are some of the things that we hope to do if we get this revenue stream to be able to address capital needs is our third thing. So again, to summarize, eliminate the deficit, build up our cash reserves, and address our capital, physical plan.
So with that, do you have any questions about our referendum?
At this point,
Okay. Anyone?
does anyone else?
The question that residents in the district will have is, what does this mean to me?
I knew someone was going to ask that. So I have the answer. A home, and I think you mean, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to my budget, right? What does this mean to my pocketbook? So a home with a market value of $150,000 displayed on the tax bill, which is different than the amount you would sell your home for. It's what is displayed on the tax bill. For 1 year each year would have a $460 increase in the property taxes for the school district, which is about $38 a month. Now, interestingly, we are still paying the last bond that the last referendum approved. So in 3 years, $152 of debt service will come off. So that total will be $308 a year, or $26 a month. Seniors who have a senior exemption or a senior freeze, it will be less than that. Any other questions? Okay, Mike.
Thanks, Shelley. Thank you, trustees and village president. So I'm a parent and a homeowner for the last 10 years here in Homewood. And I moved here because of the diverse community and the reputation of the schools. I'm also part of Citizens for Homewood Schools, as Shelley mentioned, and we are a nonpartisan political action committee with the sole purpose of focusing on District 153. We've been around for 10 years. We go dormant when we're not needed, and then we pop back up when a referendum comes around. So this is the third time that you've seen Citizens for Homewood Schools. And so I'm here in support of the ballot in November. And a couple of things that I want to touch on that Shelley and Scott did. So the last time the limiting rate was increased was over 30 years ago. So that tells me as a citizen that our schools are doing a great job at managing their budget without having an increase in 30 years. Our schools provide a quality education. As Scott mentioned, the extracurriculars, the fine arts, we have gym 5 days a week. That's not like it is in all districts. And we have interventionists in each of our schools, psychologists, social workers. With the pandemic, that's been huge for our children. And we as CHS believe that an educated society is not only important, but critical to advancing as a people. And finally, without this referendum, we really see that the quality of education in our district could go down. And that's really why a lot of us moved here. So as Shelley noted, the limiting rate will now put us in par with 161 and 233. And it's my understanding that there's been a tradition of taxing bodies supporting one another on initiatives such as this. So I'm here to ask the village to publicly support and endorse the referendum in November. And I'll take it a step further and ask you guys, when we launch our website in a week, if you could come out and check out our website and sign up to put a yard sign in your yard to show everyone that you support our schools and you support the continued home value. Any questions?
I'll discuss it with the board. We'll see if we can get there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Richard?
A resolution in support of that would show up on the public record.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas, the omnibus vote, please.
The board is asked to approve the reappointment of John Zander to the Appearance Commission for a 3-year term ending August 9, 2025, and the reappointments of Terry Kerr and Craig Schmidt, both serving on the Economic Development Committee for a 2-year term ending August 9, 2024. The board is asked to pass ordinance M 1063, amending the municipal code to set standards for the review of tobacco license applications. The change creates 2 separate classifications and limiting the number in each classification to 17 business licenses and 2 retail licenses. The municipal code has not been updated in 20 years. These changes will incorporate changes in state law. The board is asked to approve ordinance M 2226 that will amend the fee schedule of the business license section for tobacco retailers. The change establishes Class 1 tobacco retailer license for the 17 businesses selling tobacco as an ancillary product. The fee will be $600 annually. Class 2 for the tobacco retail license will affect 2 businesses where the sale of tobacco is the store's primary business. The license fee is $1,200 annually.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings?
I just wanted to clarify for the board because I had some minor tweaks I wanted to make to this ordinance over the weekend. It's essentially similar to what was distributed on Friday, but I just wanted to clarify for everybody. The import of this ordinance is the village has always had the authority to regulate tobacco sales, and the village has done that. However, there has not been a limitation on the number of licenses. So unlike liquor, where all those licenses, we strictly limit the number of licenses, that is what this ordinance would do. It would limit the number of licenses for authorized tobacco retailers within the village. So that is a substantial change. If in the future there was another licensee that came in and requested a license, that would be brought before the board, just like it is with liquor now, similar situation. So in that case, it would be up to the board to determine whether or not an additional license would be granted, either Class 1 or a Class 2.
This is a very positive step because it will limit those stores that will sell tobacco only. And it will be up to the board to make the decision as to whether to grant additional licenses. Comments or questions from anyone in the audience? Board comments, trustee Washington,
Nothing.
trustee Harris Jones,
Nothing for me.
trustee Heiferman,
I have no comments on.
trustee Roman.
Nothing.
May I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by trustee Roman, seconded by trustee Washington. Roll call, please.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Heiferman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
President Hofer.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. New business, the item regarding MC 1064 is deferred. No, one more meeting. General board discussion. Trustee Washington,
Nothing for me.
trustee Harris Jones,
Nothing for me.
trustee Heiferman.
I think it's the appropriate time to remind people, school's coming back. Careful out there and that's all.
Trustee Roman.
Nothing for me.
With that, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by trustee Roman, seconded by trustee Washington. Roll call, please.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Heiferman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman. Aye. President Hofer.
Aye, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Oh, where do you-